Started right around 12:30, so I'll hang out for a couple more minutes and see if some others join, and then we'll get started at 12:30. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm showing that it's right at 12:30, so we will go ahead, excuse me, and get started. Today we are, this is our last session of our Texas Agribility Summer Webinar Series. And today we have USDA NRCS, or National Natural Resources Conservation Service, on with us today. Just about getting started with NRCS, what some of the programs they have available, and how you can access those services. So my name is Mackenzie Thomas. I am the program manager for Texas Agribility. And we provide services to individuals with disabilities, chronic health conditions, and any functional limitations in agriculture. We are funded through the USDA's National Institute of Food and Ag, or NIFA, and we are part of a nationwide organization of other agribility projects that assist farmers and ranchers with disabilities as well. We also have a couple of project partners for our project here in Texas. One of those is AgriSafe Network, who provides some safety and health education for individuals in agriculture, as well as a Center for Independent Living in the Brazos Valley. So just a couple of little webinar housekeeping things before we get into the presentation. If you would, if you're not already, you can mute your microphone just so we don't have a lot of background noise while the speaker is speaking today. But if you need to unmute yourself to ask a question, you should see those options on the bottom of your screen somewhere within Zoom. If you have questions, you can do those through the chat feature. We also have an option to raise your hand, and we can call on you and you can unmute, or there is a Q&A option as well. We also will leave time at the end of the webinar for questions, but you can feel free to leave those in the chat as we go along as well. Closed captioning is available if you need that. You can turn on live captions in the meeting options, and we will be recording this for later viewing on our YouTube channel. So If you need to jump off early or if you missed one of the previous webinars, don't worry, we have those all recorded. We will be recording this one today as well, and we post those on our YouTube channel so that you can view them later. So with that, I will go ahead and introduce our speaker for today, Sonia Estrada. She is a USDA NRCS district conservationist. And so she works within that agency, and we'll share a little bit about what it looks like to get started with NRCS. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, y'all. How's everybody doing? I am Sonia Estrada. I am the district conservationist here for the Bryan Field office. I work with y'all every day, so it is a big pleasure of mine to be a part of this series that Agribility is hosting. And typically, I'm used to an in-person type of setting. So this is a fun one for me. This will be my first time doing a webinar. So I am quite excited to be here with y'all. So I am the district conservationist. When you go to your local field office, I am that version of whoever will be in that field office, who you'll be working with. So I encourage getting to know who that person is and starting to build a relationship. So today we're going to go over some basics of who we are and what we do. And I look forward to any questions that you all have. If there's, like I said, I do this typically in person. So if you do have a question, feel free to raise your hand and Mackenzie and I will hammer out how to get those going. Or if you want to put them in the Q&A or chat, there is some time that I will be allotting towards the end for us to go over that. So
Did you want to
today,
go ahead and do the poll and see kind of where they're from
oh,
too?
yes, thank you, Mackenzie. I forgot about that.
Perfect.
I
You
do.
too.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Mackenzie was great. She figured out how to do some polling for us. So the first question that we have here is, have you ever utilized USDA NRCS services? I am just a little bit interested if you wouldn't mind answering that. Just curious if anyone has ever worked with us or not. It gives us a little bit of data for, further outreach that we do. So thank you for those of you who have answered. I see we've got people are still going. Okay. It looks like we've got some pretty good, most people have. Okay, well, great. And then our other question, it looks like 75% of you have and 25% of you have not. So hopefully this is a good refresher for those who have worked with NRCS before. And for those of you who have not, I hope this is helpful. So that was our first poll. Okay, and then our second poll, oh, it looks like it keeps popping that one. Oh, tell us where you're from. So like what county have you worked in before? Or, so that way we kind of get an idea. I know a lot of these AgriLife programs that they have are people throughout the state, and we've even had some people who are from other states come and join, which I think is awesome. So just curious about that. Again, thank you, Mackenzie, for doing that for us. I really do appreciate it. So
Awesome. And I think if you answered, sorry, I had to relaunch it. It's our first
it's
time
okay.
using this feature, but
Yes, thank
I
you.
can put those two results together. So there were some people that answered that question in the first poll.
Oh, yes,
So
thank you so much. I appreciate you helping with that.
thank
All
you.
right, y'all, I'm going to stop my video and we are going to go to the PowerPoint. So here we go. All right, the history of the Natural Resources Conservation Service. So in 1932, persistent droughts led to crop failures on the Great Plains in mass numbers. So there was a big dust storm that came through, and because there was persistent drought and lack of crop crops on the fields when there was a big windstorm that came through. It created what we know historically as the Dust Bowl. So this storm of dust went from, the Midwest all the way to Washington, D.C., and it just was like a black curtain of you couldn't see anything in front of you. And so Hugh Bennett was coined the father of soil conservation, and he was able to speak to Congress to discuss, creating a service called the Soil Erosion Service to go out with producers and help assess the erosion that was occurring on their land. So in 1935, in response to the devastating impacts of the Dust Bowl, the Soil Conservation Service was created. Over time, the agency has evolved to look at more resources besides just the soil and the erosion that was occurring in our cropland, and has expanded to looking at things such as additionally water, air, plants, animals, humans, and energy. So because we started encompassing more of these resources and looking at other things instead of only honing in on soil conservation, Congress decided in 1994 that SCS changed their name from Soil Conservation Service to the Natural Resources Conservation Service to better reflect the efforts of what was going on. So that's a little history of NRCS, and what you hear most when you are listening to people who are presenting is we quite often say, like, we love helping people help the land. That is the NRCS motto: helping people help the land. And this goes right with our vision: a world of clean and abundant water, healthy soils, resilient landscapes, and thriving in our agricultural communities through voluntary conservation. So that's a key word there, the voluntary conservation, because we don't typically get involved with anyone unless you, the producer or landowner, reach out to us. So that is key. So how do you find us? There are many avenues that you can locate NRCS. To find things that are specific to Texas, because this is a national entity. It's best if wherever you're at, to search that state. So here it's Texas NRCS, and then you can see the website. It tailors it to Texas. So you can look at things such as conservation basics, how to get assistance, information about programs and initiatives, other resources available, news and events. There's lots of great information that can be found on the Texas NRCS USDA website. I encourage each and every one of you to go on there and look around and see what you can find. If you are trying to find your local field office, there are many ways to find that. And we can even do a demo towards the end if you don't know who or where your local field office is at. Like, that's what I want to promote, is folks making those connections and relationships with those field offices, so that way you can get the most out of our services. So we have approximately 228 field offices in 258 counties. So there's a USDA service center in nearly every county in Texas. Again, I encourage contacting your local field office ahead of time to set an appointment. Some of the offices are a one-person office. So if they're out in the field and you just swing by, you're going to come to an office that may be locked if it's not sharing a space with FSA, and then that contact won't be there. So I highly encourage to call and make an appointment ahead of time, so that way you can really spend some one-on-one time together without, interruptions occurring. So we have where you can Google, find your local service center or these service center locators where it's an interactive map. There's also on the farmers.gov website. If you scroll down, this is a snapshot of what it looked like at the time that we created this slideshow. But if you go to the farmers.gov and then scroll all the way to the bottom, there's going to be this little find your local service center where you can narrow it down by state and county to find who your contact would be in the telephone numbers. Again, we can do a demo at the end, so that way if anyone is unsure, we can point them in the right direction. So what do we do? So we provide technical assistance, and there are also opportunities for financial assistance via cost share. And there are three great technical assistance opportunities. The first being is when you meet with that contact in your field office, that might just be like the first like introduction, right? Like, oh, you tell them who you are, what you've got going on, if you've got any issues, some of your goals, and then you're going to schedule an initial site visit. And at that initial site visit, we will go out with you and you will essentially take us on a tour of your operation or your land, and we will, with you, get a complete inventory of your property. So, we'll go out and take a look and see where cross fences are, water, creeks, barns, anything that's pertinent to your operation and how it's ran. We will get a full inventory of that because that will help us later on in the planning process. So having a really good and complete inventory of your property, I think, is one of the most important things for us to work with the producer to get. So that way we can make some really good decisions later on down the road. While we're doing this, of course, you may have a problem that you have already identified that you want to discuss with that person, the DC or the soil conservationist. And, we can bring that up ahead of time or while we're out there. I typically ask people, are there any problems that are occurring on your property that, we need to make sure that we look at while we're out there? If I see something that, maybe the producer is not aware of may cause an issue, then I will, in a very kind fashion, bring it up. These are opportunities for education. So, I learn from the producer and the producer also learns from me. So it's a give and take, like we're both learning from each other. So that's, the whole point, right? We want to teach each other things. We want to help people help the land. So if I see something out there that may be an issue, I will bring that up with them when we're out riding around and say, okay, hey, let's take a look at this and discuss this and kind of gauge what they know or see what's going on. So we'll identify problems together, and then we will leverage the experience of others. So what this means is if there is something out there, that is beyond my expertise, we have a wonderful opportunity to discuss some of these problems that we may find with, or, just the scenario of your operation with someone who is a specialist, whether that is like some of our partners, like Texas Parks and Wildlife. There are lots of Quail Forever. We work with a lot of these partners. We know the contacts in the areas to discuss with them, what's going on in your operation and bouncing ideas back and forth. And I've even gone out to appointments with the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department representative biologist, to kind of see what they think as well. But on staff, we also have field specialist. We have a range specialist, a biologist, an engineer, a wetland specialist, a forester, and an agronomist, who are all available to go out with the soil conservationists or district conservationists to go out and take a look and, give us more education and visions for what is going on your property. So we also have team members that we can also, who may have more experience in, maybe like a sheep operation versus someone who may know a lot more about cattle. I think the one thing that I really enjoy about this career is that we have the opportunity to work in a team setting as well as like on our own, but leveraging the experience of others and their knowledge is a really great way for us to all bounce ideas off of one another and learn some new things. So I always find that to be a very fun experience when we can have some specialists come in and really hone in on some topics that I may not be aware of or the producer landowner may not be aware of. So it's a great opportunity. I always tell folks like, yeah, an initial site visit is great. There's going to be a lot, like that's just the beginning of this relationship, like depending on the scenario, we may have to go out 2 more times to really get a grasp on what's going on if it's a very dynamic and challenging situation. So again, that initial site visit is the beginning of a really great relationship between the field office and those agricultural producers out there that we're working with. So with that being said, that's a program that is non-cost share type, but your taxpayer dollars pay for us to be able to go do that. So now moving over to some programs that we have that do have financial assistance. We have 3 here that are our main programs. The first one is EQIP, and that stands for Environmental Quality Incentive Program, and the other is CSP, which is Conservation Stewardship Program. And then we have an ASAP, which is Agricultural Conservation Easement Program. Of course, we are the government, so we have lots of acronyms. So I know that can be a bit confusing. So I always, when I talk to people, I will say the acronym and then tell them what it is so that way they understand what we're talking about. So the purpose of EQIP. So this is to promote ag production, forest management, and environmental quality as compatible goals and to optimize environmental benefits. So this is a very practice-based program that a producer can apply for. Some of the more common practices that we see in these types of contracts are cross fencing for rotational grazing and improving forage structure, brush management, taking out, invasive stands of Chinese tallow, livestock water distribution, grass planting. So again, this is very much a practice-based program. And whenever you work with the district conservationist and y'all make that conservation plan, it will be addressed like what some of these concerns or some practices that we think that would work best to reach your goals on your operation. So EQIP eligibility. So to apply for this program and be eligible, we have to have an adjusted gross income of less than 900,000, and that's an average over 3 years, and it depends on the years that you're applying in. That will then dictate which years they will look at for the average. We also have to have the producers complying with the highly erodible land and wetland conservation requirements. So these are all forms that are filled out with, the forms are held at FSA, but we would go over these with you and so would FSA. We also have to have an eligible producer. So they either have to be the owner or the operator. So again, that would be something that is updated with FSA, and that land has to be either ag land or non-industrial private forest. And we must address at least one natural resource concern. So again, a lot of these eligibility requirements is something that we work with the Farm Service Agency, which is what I will be referring to as FSA. They hold a lot of those records, or like we can help with the paperwork, but all in all, they are the ones who manage that eligibility documentation and where it's submitted at. So again, FSA and USDA are under, or not USDA, NRCS are under the umbrella of USDA, and we work together on checking the eligibility there. So for the EQIP process, step number one, the most important step is creating that conservation plan with the soil conservationist or district conservationist. That's going to be number one. And then from there, the producer or landowner can submit an application for EQIP. And then the field office staff then assesses and ranks the application. So based off of what we see out there is our assessment. And then based off of that assessment, the application is then ranked. And then from there, the applications are selected for funding, and we are told who is gets selected. We then let the producer landowner know if they have been selected, and if they would ask them if they would like to proceed with applying. And if so, they would then come in and sign all the paperwork and the contract. And then the practice is then installed. And once it's installed, and of course, there's a lot more to this, I'm just keeping it very general. Practice is installed, and then we go out and we certify the practice, make sure that it's been installed per USDA NRCS standards and specifications. Once that has been cleared, then the participant is paid. So there is a process, and I think it's really important if you do apply for any of our programs for funding that you understand the process for each program and how they are administered. So that way there are no gray areas and you can make a decision on what's best for your operation to move forward. So now let's discuss some payment rates. So for 2024, let's say we've got someone in that was needing to do some brush management and they were going to be doing chemical broadcast. That would be paid out by the acre. And so for this year, the cost share is $33.31 per acre. So based on how many acres were GPSed when we did the inventory of that site, it would be reflected, that would be the payment. So let's say you had, 6 acres that were going to be cleared and you ended up clearing 5. Well, you would get paid 5 times the 33.31. That would be your cost share. The next example is fence. So if you did installed, let's say 3,000 feet of fence, you would get cost shared at $2.40 per foot. So, and then again, a native grass planting is per acre. So each practice has a different cost share amount, and it's paid out depending on if it's by like acreage or foot or the number of structures. So each practice is different. There are opportunities for those who meet the requirements for our historically underserved categories. And these categories are limited resource producer, socially disadvantaged groups, beginning farmers and ranchers, and then veterans discharged within the last 10 years of their discharge date. It has to be 10 years from that. So if you meet one of these requirements, then you automatically get the opportunity to get those higher rates for cost share. So let's just say, a non-HU member gets $2.40 per foot. Well, an HU producer would get a higher rate, and this is just me making up a number. Let's just say it's like $2.30 63 cents. So, in each practice is different. So again, as you're building, if you apply and you're unsure of what the cost share is, just have a conversation with that district conservationist so that you know up front, you're like, okay, is this going to be, something that's going to be beneficial for me? So again, having that relationship and having those conversations, I think, are really important. So the next program we're going to talk about is called CSP. So CSP is our Conservation Stewardship Program. And this encourages producers to address priority resource concerns that are given to us, the field offices, by national and state conservationists. And this is to improve and conserve the quality of the condition of natural resources in a comprehensive manner. So we are moving away from a practice-based only contract and stepping up our management, and we're looking more at like what we call enhancements, and these are, a lot of them are very much like management based. So typically it's best to start looking and asking about CSP like once all of the infrastructure on your operation is in place and you feel confident that you're okay, I'm ready to step it up in my stewardship level. I want to be at a higher level of stewardship, and I'm ready to take it on. So with CSP, our eligibility requirements, again, are the adjusted gross income of less than 900,000 average for 3 years, depending on the year that you apply. We will look at the different years that coincide with that. Again, you have to meet and comply with the highly erodible land and wetland conservation requirements. You've got to be an eligible producer, so an owner or an operator. And here the difference in the operator is that this operator shares in the risk of the ag operation. So they have to be a little bit more involved in the risks that are going on, because these are 5-year contracts. So if don't even have, a lease that goes beyond that, we're okay, do you really share in the risk of this operation? So again, we'll look at that a little bit more deeper than we would with EQIP. And then of course, the land must be eligible. It's got to be ag land or non-industrial private forest land. So further on with the eligibility, now we're looking at meeting minimum thresholds, stewardship thresholds, and we have to improve at least one natural resource concern during the contract by undertaking these new activities / what we call enhancements. So these contracts are 5-year contract. And some examples of what some folks have done are looking at enhancing and managing riparian corridors, contingency planning for cattle operation, looking at vegetation and soil monitoring in a crop setting. And then we also have some opportunities for folks whose main goal is wildlife habitat improvement. So there are many avenues that people can take a look at to see if there's anything that they're interested in within this program. The next program I want to talk about is it's called the Conservation Easement Opportunity Programs, and this one is called ALE. We've got the Agricultural Land Easement Program and the Wetland Reserve Program. So easement opportunities, what they do is they protect the long-term viability of an ag operation or wetland by limiting non-ag use or wetland features of the land. NRCS will provide financial assistance to eligible partners, which are land trusts, for purchasing an agricultural land easement that protects the ag use and conservation values of the land. So there are no minimum ownership time You must be working the agricultural lands. This is a perpetual easement only. So, this is a program that I would definitely encourage, if you are interested, making sure that you discuss, reach out to the local field office and discuss, so that way, we know, if you're interested and can give you more information on this. Only eligible conservation entities can apply, and the conservation entity holds the easement. And these conservation entities are, like some land trusts. So when we're talking about the wetland reserve easement, this has a 24-month minimum ownership time. There are 30 years and permanent easements. So it must be a wetland in need of restoration. The U.S. government holds the easement and controls all management activities. The landowner retains the title, access control, hunting and fishing rights, and mineral rights. And management activities are granted via permission only. So this is a little bit about our easement programs. Again, I would highly encourage, if you're interested in any of these programs, to make sure that you reach out to your local field office. A little bit more information about this wetland reserve easement program is, you're basically selling the right to manage the vegetation. Easements are an interest in real property established by agreement between the landowner and USDA. The easement runs with the land, meaning it's applicable to both present and future owners of the land. As with other real property interests, the grant of the conservation easement is recorded in the local land records. The grant becomes a part of the chain of title for the property. And then if this is something that you're interested in, there's a website called www.findalandtrust.org. And that gives landowners the opportunity to go through the land trust entities and choose one of their liking that they would like to work with. Currently, NRCS pays 80% of the fair market value of the land, not to exceed $5,000 per acre, unless the land owner offer is less. So again, make sure you keep in contact with your local field office of any of these programs you're interested in, so we can, start giving you some more detailed information and work with you one-on-one on achieving your goals. So with that being said, I am going to open up the floor for questions. Again, I'm used to doing this in person, so typically we're bouncing back and forth from one another. So it was really weird for me to not be able to get questions from y'all while I'm chit-chatting. So if anyone has any questions, I would love to hear from you and see if I can answer them.
We did have one in the chat. Heather asked, do we do this at the beginning of the process as well? And Heather, feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to explain a little bit about what you were wanting to know. I think Jess is towards the beginning when you're talking about like conservation plans and reaching out for technical assistance. But Heather, feel free to clarify.
Yeah, Heather, what you got?
Yeah, I'm just starting out in the process and interested in doing the, beginning farmers and stuff. And so just been watching all these webinars and just trying to understand the information of, what's available out there to us. So you're talking about like, getting all the site stuff done and all that. Do we do that before we start so that way they can look at and come and see? Because I've heard like the
Okay, so are you someone who hasn't really started like you're not quite sure what you want to do on your land? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Yeah, like we can most certainly go out and take a look at the land, see if there's any concerns that we can address without you having started your operation. And just give you like a general like baseline. that's not a problem. I've worked with producers who aren't quite sure, and I can at least get them some basic information or show them how to use certain tools and provide some maps for them so they can start to better understand their land and figure out what it is that they want to do. I mean, we don't, come up with a business plan, or we're not going to tell you, what you should do. Again, like that's up to you, absolutely, we would not do that. But yeah, we can offer some information for you so that you can better prepare yourself and start making some of those decisions. Absolutely. Where are you out of, Miss Heather? What county do you have land in?
I'm in Medina County right now, so
Do
yeah, we
you know
like
how
this.
to have you been to your local field office before?
Not yet. I kind of emailed him some questions here and there, and so
Okay.
I have to set up an appointment with him and I guess go over some stuff of kind of like what kind of ideas we have and what we want to do. So,
Okay then. All right. Well, yeah, great. It looks like you know who to reach out to. And every field office works differently. Okay. So it also depends like what their staffing is. So I think it's also important to take some of that into consideration. If they're a one-man office, it may, be a little bit before they can get out there. So again, just keeping all of these things in mind, but I don't see why it would be a problem for you all to either him bring you into the office and show you some tools that you can utilize. I could even go through a couple that I can share with you. Well, I guess a quick question. How many of you already have, and if you could just do your little hand raise, how many of you have already like an operation in place? If you could raise your hand. Let's see, do I see any hand? Okay, I've got Chris does. So are the rest of you just some folks who have some land and you want to you're trying to figure out what to do? I'm assuming I am going to share my screen again.
We
And
also had a question in the chat too, kind of
oh,
related
yes.
to that.
Yeah, go
It says,
ahead.
I'm a 100% disabled vet and I've been out for more than 10 years. Are there any programs to help me? I'm trying to get a plant nursery up and running.
Yes, I mean, our programs are open to anyone. And if you meet the requirements of one of the, it's a little bit more complex than that. We need to go out and take a look at what's going on, take a look at your operation and see if there's anything there that qualifies for any type of cost share. Or, again, the technical assistance that does not have any cost share tied to it would be the getting a complete inventory of your property, identifying any problems out there, and then also leveraging the experience of other folks. So, my best advice for that is to find your local field office, which is what I'm going to show you here, is to find where are you, who asked that question?
I believe it was Joe Priest.
Joe, where are you out of? Are you in Texas? And if so, what county? You can either put that in the chat. Because again, it's a very dynamic situation. I can't say, well, yes, there is, because we offer technical assistance to all people who come to us. I get people who call and ask, hey, I have this, plant that's growing like crazy on my property. Can you come and ID it? That's a technical assistance service that your tax dollars pay for. Now, granted, maybe there's nothing else on his property that there's any issues or nor that he's interested in pursuing. We are still providing service on one of our programs. Granted, it doesn't entail any cost share. So, again, it's dependent on each scenario. Again, it's a very complex and dynamic situation, I would hate to say like, yes, there's cost share available without having ever gone out to your place.
And he said he's in Cass County, Texas.
Cass County. Okay, so if I go to Texas here, oh, let me try again. It timed out. Cass. So you're here. So it's all click. You can click on it. So the Linden Service Center is going to be the field office that you work with. And so for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, it looks like your contact there is Jeffrey Williams. He goes by Jeff. And here's his contact number, 903-756-5491, extension 3. My best advice is to reach out to him, give him a call, and, let him know what you've got going on, where you're at, and that you would like to, set an initial site visit appointment. And from there, you and him can work together. If he's got a soil conservationist, y'all can work together to see, okay, what you've got going on out there, if there are any issues that need to be identified, and then we can go from there. I think that's probably the best advice I can give on that. But yes, there are, again, programs. If there is something that you are eligible for, with our financial assistance, whether it's EQIP, C, or CSP, there are opportunities for veterans, beginning farmer ranchers, socially disadvantaged, and limited resource producers and landowners to get a higher cost share. So yes, there are opportunities. I again urge the importance of finding your local field office. I challenge each and every one of you to find your local field office and then actually contacting that person, so y'all can start this relationship with one another, so that way we can help y'all help the land. So it's a team effort for sure.
And I also put a link for the service center locator in the chat.
Wonderful.
We'll include that in the recap email that we send out to everyone afterwards as well. So if you are on your phone or something and you don't have time to click on it right now, we'll send those links out to you after.
So Texas is split in two, but like we could go look in Maine, if we had someone here from a different state. So this is the one that I typically use. Again, I'm a visual person, so I love maps. I work with maps all the time. So I like this. There's different formats where you can have the drop downs, so this is a great tool. Something else for those of you who are still trying to, figure out what to do. There's a website called Web Soil Survey. Make this big. Web Soil Survey. This is a wonderful website, even for people who already have an operation going, to go in and play with. So you're going to hit that Start Web Soil Survey. And from here, you can either find your operation, or you can input an address or look via state and county. Let me zoom in right quick. And you can play with all sorts of data relevant to your operation and what's going on. And this will give some really great information for y'all to utilize. And again, with people who are trying to figure out what they want to do, I typically will, when they come in, if they come into the field office, or if I go out to their site and we don't get a chance to meet in the field office, I will tell them about this and let them know that this is a great resource to look at soils on your property and just play with all of these different reports. Again, I could spend a lot of time on here messing around and looking at different things. But again, I encourage each and every one of you, to reach out to your local field office, not just NRCS, but also your local farm service agency field office. They're typically housed together, so that's very easy to knock two birds, the saying, two birds with one stone. So, but some field offices, they are separate, but that's very rare. I would make an effort to build a relationship with your program technician and FSA, and then also the district conservationist and NRCS, because again, we work together as a team to help the producers and landowners to get and achieve their goals. So that's my first challenge to y'all. My second challenge is to go on to websoilsurvey.com and start playing around with this tool, and just see what you can find or what you can learn about. I learn new things on here all the time. So it's a really cool tool, and I encourage all of you to use it. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to demo while we were on here. It was Web Soil Survey and finding your local field office. Do we have any other questions? Let me look at the chat. Cass County Joe. Okay. I see something about a business plan. Yes, I agree with Megan. Because we don't necessarily, we do like startup. We don't, again, that's not something that we do. We don't tell people what they should be doing on their land. We're typically working with people who have already gotten their agricultural operation going. But again, the landscape is changing, and we're here to help anyone, with what's going on and what we see out there. So any information, data that you can get from us that would be helpful for y'all, that's what we're here for. We're here for you. So
I did have a question, just personally.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you have a lease agreement, is there a minimum lease requirement to be part of some of those programs like EQIP?
EQIP, we generally say, this is tricky because EQIP, we per se can't say there's a minimum, right? But if your project is taking 3 years to do and you only have a 1-year lease, that's probably
so it's dependent on the project that you're interested in as to how long your lease agreement would need to be for.
Right. And then also on like CSP, the Conservation Stewardship Program, those are not again, that's not a practice-based program. Once you've installed that practice or practices and they've been certified and paid out, once that last practice is paid out, your contract is done, right? With CSP, so that may be, and I don't try to put people in large EQIP contracts because if there is an increased cost share, which every year we have economists and national who come out with these cost share amounts, I don't want to get someone locked into something that they may get a higher cost share amount further down the road. Also it's the EQIP contracts are better when they're shorter. We have, again, because we're just trying to install some infrastructure to meet a concern for a resource out there, whereas a CSP is more of a management style program. So that takes time. And those contracts are 5 years. So if you don't have a lease for 5 years, that probably won't fly because you're not going to be working that. You don't have a vested interest. Again, on the CSP, it goes back to if you are an operator applying, which most of the time for CSP, I've seen it's the owner of the land is also the person running the operation. Not to say that you can't be an operator. You have to be an operator who is vested in that operation. Again, those are 5-year contracts. So we're going to need to see at least something more than at least 5 years and the 5 years that you'll be in that contract. Good question. And then the place where to report all of that is with your local farm service agency. They are the ones who keep all those records. And and know like, okay, if, Farmer Joe is the owner, but he's leasing it out to someone else, Farmer James, and they have a lease agreement, well, that's great. But they also need to let them report to Farm Service Agency and take the necessary documents over there because we run all of our reports off of FSA. So we get our eligibility data from them. So again,
So if
that's
you
why.
were going into the office for the first time and maybe they're wanting to access NRCS services, would you encourage them to go visit FSA first
Oh,
and just get their farm number taken care of and
I don't
lease?
have to do that first by any means, but they should definitely do that in a reasonable time.
Perfect.
The people that I work with, I typically encourage them to do that first because like in our mapping software, it becomes much easier to build the conservation. I can actually build the conservation plan if they have if they're connected to a farm and a tract. If they're not, I can't with the software that we use to create our maps and whatnot. You can't really do that. So doesn't mean that I won't go out and see them. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying I can produce some maps of the operation and the site and look at a lot of things because when I'm going out to someone's place, like I'm looking at soils, I'm looking at hydrology, and if there was ever, any wetlands recorded, I'm looking at topo maps. We're looking at it's a very dynamic thing that we're looking at Mother Nature, right? So there are a lot of things that we're looking at to prepare to go out there. So if I can actually start researching some of this before I go, that's great. If I don't get the chance because I can't pull, these maps, that's fine too. But I do encourage again to make those connections with FSA and NRCS because if you're interested in our programs, you also have to work with FSA. And FSA also has their own set of programs that may be valuable to your operation. So, starting those relationships with them is really important because yes, I know what some of them are. I don't know the ins and outs of them. And I would refer you, hey, go meet them, go talk with them, see what they have to offer. They have some programs as well that are beneficials and they also have information for loans and whatnot. So yes, anytime I work with someone, I encourage, have you met, our program technician in FSA? Oh, no, I haven't. Well, you should make an appointment with them. They, have some really great opportunities over there as well. So yes, I think that it's really important that they also build a relationship there. They will eventually because they're going to have to go there to turn in all their eligibility paperwork. So, yeah.
Awesome. And then do you see that it's common that people use FSA farm loans for some of these conservation practices that they would need to put in that are then reimbursed after they're completed?
I don't get, I've never, I would assume that people do, and I've heard that people do. So they have like micro loans and farm loans, Um, I have never had anyone specifically tell me, oh, I'm using this loan to do this. So I don't really go asking for that. But I would assume that they probably do.
Right. So what I'm getting at is if there's people out there that don't have, they think, well, it'd be great to do cross fencing, but I wouldn't have the finances to put it in and then be reimbursed on cost share. You can utilize, go across the hallway to FSA, utilize their farm loans, micro loans to help put in those practices, and then NRCS reimburses, and that would help pay back those loans. So if you look at that and you think, well, that would be nice, but I don't have, the finances personally to cover it. There's other options within the same departments of, USDA that kind of help get some of that stuff together. And if you already have to go through FSA to get your farm number
exactly, why not ask them
do
about
that, then maybe ask about some of those microloans and what they can cover.
Absolutely. There's tons of resources out there. I know it's overwhelming. It's a lot of data. It's a lot of information for y'all. Y'all are trying to either run an operation or start an operation, and it becomes very overwhelming. Which is why I say, like, build a relationship somewhere. Like, we can help you navigate that, you know. And I learn new things all the time. Like, I was at the Battleground for Breaking Ground, and there was a presentation by TDA that Mr. Martinez put on, and I learned about their STAR program for emergency relief that I had no idea about. So, I mean, even for us, sometimes we're learning new things all the time. New programs come up, you know. That's why I say just pick up the phone, you know, give someone a call, and you know, we do our best to try to find something out there to assist you. There's not really a time I don't give someone some sort of product, whether it's something over the phone or on a site visit, you know, education, knowledge. There's always something that we can all learn from one another. So again, I really can't emphasize enough the importance of building those relationships with your local field offices.
Awesome. Well, and we'll be on a couple more minutes too if y'all have any additional questions. Like I said, I'll also include any links that she discussed in the follow-up email, as well as her contact information and the information to find your local field office. Quickly before we get off, I would like to just do a quick little survey. I'll launch now on the poll to just gauge if you learned anything and plan to use any of this information in your operations in the future. So you should see a poll pop up, and it just asks your understanding of NRCS programs before the webinar and then after the webinar, and if you plan to utilize the things that you learned today in your operation or future operation. So if you could just take a couple minutes and give us some feedback on that, that would be super helpful. Also, if you missed any of the previous webinars, those are all recorded on our YouTube channel, and Mary Kate will be sending out links to each of those. We talked a little bit about USDA Farm Service Agency today and what some of the programs that they may have available, but we also did a webinar with them, so that will be in there if you would like to kind of review what programs they have available and if some of those might be applicable to you. We'll send out the link to that webinar as well. But you can always contact us as well. I'll share my contact information as well as our other program staff. And thank you all for joining us and for joining this series. Hopefully you found it helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us or Sonia as well.
Yes, thank you all so much. And again, thank you, Mackenzie and Agribility, for hosting this. I really think it's wonderful that y'all are providing some other avenues for people to learn about these wonderful opportunities. Again, we're all in this community together, and that's what I love about what we do, especially in agriculture, because we do value community. So again, hats off to y'all for putting this together for this community. I really think it's a great thing that y'all are doing. Thank you for involving me.
And thank you for joining us and sharing all of this great information. Like I said, you'll get an email after this webinar with the recording. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and we hope you have a great afternoon.